Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah. So how about right before we get started, there are some tables that maybe it'd be easier if somebody joined them over there so that we can have tables, because there's going to be some conversation that's taking place at these tables. And so we want the tables to be full so that people can actually have some things to say. So I'll give you a few minutes or a couple of minutes just to move around a bit if you need to join another table. Yeah, move around. What's that? Jump around. Yeah. Yeah. Good to go. Doug, that means you're going to have to go with somebody. You can't stay there by yourself. Yes. You can do it. You can do it. Well, this is a little bit different. I know that people came last Sunday and they probably walked in and saw that the way that the tables were set up and that they could have been, and I know that they were a little bit like, surprised, what are we doing? Why are we doing that? Who am I going to sit with? Who am I going to talk to? I don't really want to be out of my comfort zone that much. But in our Monday meeting, we talked about how we really thought that it ended up being something pretty spectacular, how people really opened up and were able to share with each other about their church experience, and we were able to share again with our church experience. So as full as that morning was, we're going to try to condense things just a little bit this morning to not keep you here till 1 o'clock, like Zach said, because Packers play at noon. And so they play, I don't know what they play, the Vikings. Yeah. So today is going to be much of the same format as it was last week, but we're going to be talking about something different. And last week, Zach set up the format for what's going to be happening for the next few weeks, just like this. And at the end of his message, he talked about what today's topic was going to be, which is practicing the ways of Jesus. So that is really who we are in a nutshell. The River Church practices the ways of Jesus. It's on our marketing, it's on our website, and it's on our buses. We are practicing the ways of Jesus together. So those 5 simple words really define who we are. In the first words in the book of Acts, it indicates that the work of Jesus on earth was not completed. It says, I have dealt with all that Jesus began to do and teach. Began to do and teach, really, what could Jesus actually do that he hadn't already done? So, but that's where we come in. The followers of Jesus are sent into the world filled with his Spirit, enriched by his grace and his truth to represent him, right? The work of Jesus continues on earth through us. So as followers, we have been faithfully set apart to mirror him in our families, in our work, in our environments, our work and our play. Any place that we actually have influence, and we are to labor in every way possible to model our ministry and our message after his. Remember back in June, we did a series based on the book called Surprise the World, 5 Habits of Highly Missional People, and we called that series The Rhythms of Grace. That was because we felt that those 5 habits, those 5 simple acts, were highlighted in this book, and they could shape us as individuals in the story and in the rhythms of the gospel. Do you remember the BELLS acronym? Bless, eat, listen, learn, sent. Each week in that series, we were challenged to practice one of these rhythms to help us better understand and experience the ways of Jesus. So, week 1, we were asked to bless people. And our creativity just could go wherever we took it. We were called to care for people, like mowing our neighbors' yards, paying for the meal of a stranger. I think somebody cared for somebody's children during a week. The possibilities actually were pretty endless. Week 2, we were called to share a meal with people, and it was out of the scope of just the people who we're comfortable with. We were called to go outside of that and share a meal and establish that as a practice that we actually do in our own individual lives every week, and to carry that on as every week continues through our whole lives, right? Week 3, we were challenged to be quiet and listen for the voice of the Spirit. We needed to become accustomed to his voice by being still and by meditating, because really, the flock knows the voice of the shepherd. And if we don't become familiar with his voice, how are we actually going to really succinctly hear what he has to say? On week 4, we were to learn from the Word of God. Just like with any other relationship, we can't know someone unless we spend time with someone. We can't know what makes them tick unless we spend time with them. And that is no different than in our relationship with Jesus. And finally, the last week, we were to understand that we ourselves were being sent by God to actually interact in the lives of others. It wasn't with a mission of conversion or to beat them over the head with the Bible. We aren't called to save them, but with confidence that our actions would point back to him, because Jesus is our model. He did it all for us anyway. And before people can know about Jesus, they actually have to see Jesus. So with that, I'm going to pose the first question. It's a two-parter. We're going to give you some time at your tables to discuss, and understand that we are limited in time, and we want to give everybody the opportunity to share. So elaborately, be very succinct in your sharing with your table. All right, the two questions are, what is the habit that you picked up from early on? A physical habit and a spiritual habit. Okay? What is the habit that you picked up from early on? A physical habit and a spiritual habit. So go ahead and discuss within your tables, and I will get back with you. I actually like this vantage point. Being able to just eavesdrop on the conversations that are happening at the table is a lot more fun than sitting at the table and coming up with my own thing. So remember last week, Zach started out with our individual stories, and then he moved on to the stories of our church. We're going to do the exact same thing this morning. You're just sharing your individual practices, and now we're going to switch gears to the corporate practices that we practice here at the River, and how they are actually the heartbeat of what we do. We believe that God has highlighted our passion for purpose, not by the things that we do, but in the things that we practice. The word practice has two meanings here. A practice also indicates that we have yet to arrive at perfection. Well, that's us. But it doesn't stop us from trying or offering grace for the times that we do stumble along the way. So, again, we're going to prepare for this part. We're going to right away ask question number 2. What are your practices, your habits, or your routines that bring you together with others? What are your practices, your habits, or your routines that brings you together with others? Ready, set, go. Okay. I hate to interrupt when conversations are getting so good. And I do wish that you could see what's going on here, because there's a lot of smiling, there's a lot of laughter. I just want to ask each table if you would just highlight one of yours. Kate, your table, what was one? Yeah. What brings you together?
Football.
Okay. There you go. Nothing wrong with that. Mike, your table back there, what was one of your practices that brings you guys together, routines? Oh, Mike, sorry. Eating, okay? All right, Penny. Parties, okay? Mike, at your table?
I think it's a various groups we're in, but it's usually a church or community small group. So I guess fellowship and accountability.
Great. Great. All right. Frank, how about your table? On the spot.
Well, I said my family and I had dinner together on Sunday.
What time?
Yes, that's what I said. I'm like, geez, we shoot for once a month in my family, and he does it every week. That's pretty spectacular. Yeah. How about back there? Jonathan, what did you guys say at your table? Serving others. All right. And boy, I called on a lot of mics. Mike, what did you have to say?
Yeah, lunch. We met here at noon Sunday. Yeah.
On Sundays?
And yeah, all my uncles, aunts, cousins, a bunch of us.
Wow, that's terrific. That's great. I love that. What we here at the River we're going to do is now highlight the things that we think that makes our practices so unique. What is our heartbeat here? When I was first taking notes, when we were at our meeting, I was taking notes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to put all this down on a piece of paper. There are so many things that we feel are important. So we just kind of boiled it down to 4 of the most important things that we really think that in practicing the ways of Jesus that the River Church has a desire to, and wants to do in the future to define who we are. The first one is prayer. We believe in the power of a praying church. Prayer was vital to the life of Christ for no other reason than his dependence and his obedience to his dad. He was complete submission to his Father, and we are too, right? Right? Apart from him, we can do nothing. So we practice by giving people opportunity to pray and to praise. We practice that by prayers of the people. It's one of my most favorite things that we have established since coming to this space that's unique and new to this space is our prayers of the people. And I love those prayers. And boy, a lot of praises this morning. That was great. So we practice so that we can become familiar with his voice, so that we can hear him, so that we're able to prepare what God is going to speak into our future as a church. So how have we done this in the past? Well, when it became apparent that we needed to raise some money for the roof of the theater building, we prayed for 90 days. We had a 90-day prayer campaign where we met together every night at 6:30, and we prayed fervently for God to answer our prayers, to raise money to put a new roof on that place. And God answered our prayers on the very last day of the 90-day campaign. But it was such a small thing in comparison to how we saw God move in ways that we had no idea he was going to do. Unifying our church, that was a big, huge thing. Getting past some of the hurts that we'd had in our church. Reconciling people back together in the church. That's all what happened in that 90 days of prayer. The money, the $80,000, was just icing on the cake, but God did wonderful things in the midst of that. We've done prayer walks through our neighborhoods where groups of us have gone out and walked through our neighborhoods to meet people. We've gone as individuals into our neighborhoods to meet people, to establish relationships, to ask if there's anything that we can do for people. And I'm telling you, some of those things were pretty amazing. Zach, could you, I'm just putting you on the spot, can you just share one of those prayer walk when you had that? When we did the prayer walks through the neighborhoods, didn't you guys have a pretty cool encounter? You and Sarah, didn't you guys have a pretty cool encounter? Maybe I'm not.
This was.
I can't think of a specific one.
I should have told you that I was
talking to. We got to talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it wasn't.
Police officer that liked wiener dogs.
I knew it had something to do with
yeah.
the wiener dog. I knew that it had something to do with the wiener dog. Yeah. So anyway, those are the things that are important to us, to meet people, to find out who they are. We prayed as a church through the transition of moving from the theater building to this building. And we saw how God overwhelmed us with his favor, opening the doors for some crazy things to happen here. The efforts of the pastoral search committee, those were bathed in fervent prayer as we searched for the perfect pastor to lead this church. Yep. Prayer changes things. Prayer changes us. And we want to infuse prayer into everything that we do because we want our wills to be unbiased and to be yielded to God's whatever is next, right? Because he's speaking into us all the time, and he has more work for us to do all the time. I lost myself. Prayer is the way that his greater work gets done. Wouldn't you agree? Not all of us are going to be evangelists. Not all of us are going to be teachers. Not all of us are going to be preachers. Not all of us are going to be healers. Some are. But everyone has the opportunity to bend their knee and to cooperate with him in our prayers. And that is powerful stuff. So that's why prayer is important to us. Yeah? No. Please interrupt.
On your topic about when the church was praying about the wealth and the unity, Mike and I had been at the river only a few times. And I remember going in, and Penny was up front and singing. And after the song, I remember she said that we're praying for the roof of this building. And we knew, I didn't know anything about it. We're praying for the roof of this building, but more importantly, we're praying for the unity of the church as
Amen.
a body and unity.
Amen.
And I remember that to this day. And
Amen.
that was one of the things that, for me, wanted me to get to know more about this.
Thank you,
Because I
Patty.
could tell that this group of people was more concerned about people.
Than they were about the roof. Thank you, Patty.
It was just, I remember that to this day.
Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. Yes, perfect. One of our other heartbeats, one of the other things that we feel strongly about practicing is empowering people, right? We're a unique people. We're designed and we're purposed with gifts and talents specific to each one of us. We spent time identifying those gifts when we did the spiritual gifts assessment series so that we could better serve God and we could better serve his people. Every gift is important and every person has something to give. And we believe that one of our practices to empower others is to empower others so that they can then invest in others. It's a sustainable practice and it can be multiplied, right, with great effect. One of our biggest ones is that we practice radical hospitality. I call it radical hospitality. We call it radical hospitality because everyone is important. A beloved child of God, right? Everyone is important. Since the beginning days of the River Church, we knew that we were set apart to love people well. That's been what we wanted to do since the very beginning. But as of late, we have more clearly defined it to be loving people well, listening to their stories, and walking life's road together. There's been a shift from the simple practice of offering a welcome to stand with others, particularly those who are at society's margins. Why? Because this is one of Jesus' practices. Didn't he most often hang out with the lowly? Didn't he dine with the sinners? So we practice radical hospitality here to send a message that doesn't just say, you're welcome to join us. That's nice. And it's almost every other church's tagline. You're welcome, a place where you can be welcome. But we say, instead, we see you, and we want to join with you wherever you are. That's different than just welcome to join us. How have we done this? Well, the men at the Walworth County Homeless Shelter love their week at the river. Not because we have extraordinary chefs who serve spectacular meals. I don't know, maybe they are. I haven't really eaten there. Not because the theater was 5-star accommodations and great beds, and not because of that. Because we invested in them, because we took time to listen to their stories, because we played games with them at nights, because we sat down and we shared a meal with them. It's going to look a little bit different this year because we don't have a building. But we still have plans, like Mike was talking about. We still have plans to help out with that as we've done in past years. We believe that we have a calling on our church to care for the basic needs of people, which is food and shelter and safety. And a very high percentage of Delavan's school kids received subsidized lunches. And so this year we partnered with Annie's Breakfast, and every day this summer those kids started their day with a meal. It wasn't something that we invented. We partnered with somebody else to do that. Our little children, they're learning the importance of caring for other people. They've shopped for Christmas gifts. They've provided school supplies. You heard that just last week, the money that they raised in the noisy offering provided lunch for our firefighters in honor of them. That is something that we are establishing within our even youngest ones to understand the importance of caring and meeting the basic needs of other people. That makes me really proud for our little kids. That big bus, it's not parked outside this week, but that big bus that we just purchased, that is going to do something amazing. It's going to help us to serve the people of our community by a food distribution. And we see that not people won't have to come to us, but we can actually drive that bus into neighborhoods and provide the needs of those people through food distributions from there. We see it as a presence at the Walworth County Fair or the fairs and festivals around there for maybe nursing moms or senior citizens so they'd have an air-conditioned space, while they're at the fair. We don't want to go to parks and with tracts and with Bibles. We want to go there to serve people with personal interaction, with authenticity and generosity, just genuinely loving people like Jesus did and meeting people where they are. And lastly, one of our practices is gathering around the table. It's central to our Sunday morning service when we partake in a meal that brings us one, makes us one, right? Zach invites us every week. Come to the table of grace for the people of grace. Hospitality and fellowship and feasting is central to our Christian faith. Because of busy schedules, though, sometimes it only seems to happen on special occasions. But we believe in our call to take our tables back. Why? Because gathering matters. Jesus preferred not to eat alone. He felt that there was more to eating than just sustenance for our physical bodies. He felt that there was sustenance that was needed for our souls. And because of this practice, he influenced a multitude of people by just sharing a meal. Simple. We've just begun that practice, really, of gathering around the table here, so it might appear to be new, but it's necessary today as it was in Jesus' time. Everyone has a desire to be known, and how better to do that than to sit and relax and be comfortable, all with food at the very center, because then comes conversation. Then comes sacrifice. Then comes perspective. And finally comes celebration. We need space to reorient our focus and regain perspective to what matters most. And in this practice, we're going to find, I think, that life-giving grace of Jesus flowing from the space as we pass the bread and we share the cup. So these are the practices of Jesus. This is the way that he did things. So there really is no need to reinvent anything. Jesus, of course, was perfect, and we certainly aren't. So we can be assured that we're going to find success when we partner with Jesus and do the things that he wants his way, and that we will receive grace when maybe we fall a little bit short. So I have been part of this church for a very long time, and never have we ever so clearly identified our practices and given them a why. In so many organizations, everybody tells you, define your why. Even in Weight Watchers, they tell me, define your why. Why do you want to lose weight? Define your why. That's important. Why is that? To know your why. Because when people know their why, they know who they are. They know what they are. And they know why they are. And when we know that, it becomes easier to live a life that's true to our core values, and that will be the subject of next week's message. Thank you, guys.
Killed it. Great work. So like we've been saying, our intent is to create an experience so that we run you through this, and then we will essentially be able to walk new people through this process as well. I want you to know that I work with a group of people who show up every single Monday morning, and they work through stuff like this, and they talk through stuff like this, and this process is, while it might be uncomfortable for some, it's also one of those things where sometimes you're called to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. And at least you know these people for the most part. What? He's looking great. He's looking great. Don't even worry about it. Hey, dude. You wanna come over here? You wanna help? Okay. Whatever. But I just want to be really clear. Like this is a really exciting time to just sit down and be able to talk about this stuff, because we haven't been able to do this since at least I've been around, and to talk about our habits, to talk about our core values, to talk about our practices, to talk about our story, to talk about how we are going out in the world and actually doing this stuff. This is kind of fun to be able to talk about. So I appreciate your willingness to be uncomfortable if this is uncomfortable. I appreciate your willingness to participate, even though you showed up today and maybe you were like, I hope that they put the tables away. But we didn't. It's going to be here the next 2 weeks. Rachel is going to talk next week on our core values, and we're going to talk about how do we determine what we value and what all the things. And then in a couple weeks, Kate is going to talk about how we launch into the world, how we live out our spiritual giftings as we go forward. So you just do you. Do you want to come over here? We're going to do the communion stuff here. Friends, this is where we gather. We gather around the table. That's one of our core practices. We gather in this space around the table because Jesus gathered around the table on a regular basis. So on the night in which he was betrayed, our Lord Jesus, he took bread. He given thanks, broke it, gave it to his friends, saying, "Take and eat. This is my body broken for you. Whenever you eat this, do so in remembrance of me." The same way, after supper, he took the cup. He given thanks, gave it to his friends, saying, "This cup is a new covenant in my blood, shed for you and for all people for the forgiveness of sin. For as long as you drink this, do so in remembrance of me. When you eat the bread and drink the cup, you proclaim my name to the ends of the earth till I come again." Friends, you don't have to be a member of our church. You just have to walk through those big doors and to partake at the meal, at